And then everyone's friend Timbaland posted a really interesting set of slides on his Instagram earlier this morning that somebody brought to my attention. And I thought I'd go through this with you, chat gang. Like let's check this out. First slide says, let's talk about AI. I've been watching the discourse online regarding AI music and figured I'd chime in since there's a lot of conflicting information floating around. There's a couple reality checks that people need to come to terms with. Interesting. This isn't pro AI or anti AI. It's just what we face today. And there's much nuance lost in all the yelling. Now, I will agree with that. I will agree that these conversations lack nuance in a way that's tough, but I feel like we live in a world where as consumers, we're not allowed a lot of nuance in terms of what laws are made or what products are offered us. Like we don't wake up and get a menu where anyone asks us how much AI we want in our lives. It's either none or everywhere, right? So since there's no AI in the rollout, there's no nuance in the rollout, it's going to be hard to make it where there's nuance in the discourse. And I think the people who are pro AI need to deal with that part too. That they have all of the levers in society to decide what's allowed to happen, and they're not engaging in any discourse about it. They're just press and go. That sort of creates the environment where there's no nuance in the discourse. This next slide says, I don't understand this one. You can't monetize input data. It's not a database you can query and generate an output. That's not how it all works at all. Giving attribution to keywords is almost impossible. Imagine who would own the keyword 80s drums. I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, but that's just not feasible. I don't know what this is or who's wanting that. I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news. It's just not feasible. You could monetize one time on the initial training, but it would be pennies, and the major labels already sold you out to Suno Udio. I'll say this. This is another mistake on the people who are pro AI. A lot of their arguments begin and end with this idea of it's already too late. So what? Like that's not, it's already too late doesn't address anybody's concerns about anything. So that part of their argument, they need to let that shit go. Is done. It's stupid. It's not conducive to dealing with anyone's concerns to say, oh, it's too late already. This is a technical limitation as it's not even that well understood how these models work. Well, that would seem to be a reason not to go head first into using them. There's no music stored in these models. It's just mathematical weights. All right. This next slide says, 2, we have been on a path of democratizing the creation of music since the birth of recorded music. This is just our photography moment, which I feel like needs a little bit more explanation. And it's hard to stomach for those that have spent their entire lives learning the skills and techniques, myself included. Records used to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars and now can be done almost entirely on an iPhone. Pardon me. This just makes it even easier for anyone to make music. Musicians feel cheated because all their hard work can now be circumvented. Does that undermine everybody in this industry? Yes. Is it the death of creativity? Absolutely not. So this is another sort of go-to argument for people who are pro AI in the music sense, is that they relate it to the creation of drum machines or, other automation that happens in the production of music. And whereas I can see the logic of that perspective, I think that sort of undermines the threat that people feel about what's happening in front of us. Because it's one thing. I think it's one thing to say, oh, look, these are all tools that make it easier for a person to make music. And if they were somehow limited to that, then I think they would have a leg to stand on in this argument. But this Instagram post is posted by the same person who is creating and marketing entire artificially intelligence powered, generated musical artists that compete in the same marketplace as us. And nothing about that makes anything easier for me as a musician. So it's like once you take it to that level, then I feel like you sort of have to abandon this point about it being a tool that makes it easier for us. Because in this particular instance, in the way it's being used, which is what we are afraid of, concerned about, it's not making it easier for us to do anything. It's making it easier for you to make money. Regulation won't work, just like it didn't work for piracy. The internet hive mind doesn't care about ethics, and free open source models are already competitive with VC backed ones. The internet hive mind doesn't care about ethics. I don't agree with that. It'll just be a game of whack-a-mole like it was for piracy. The idea that AI in general will be somehow regulated in a worldwide market is insane to me. Good luck enforcing it. Even the major labels have a monopoly on music copyright, have no chance but to fold. The U.S. will embrace it in order to stay competitive. It's so much bigger than music. So again, this is a point that starts with the idea of it's already too late, and it's also using what I think is a false equivalency with piracy. And in addition to that, regulation for piracy, I would say, did work, because that's why we have Spotify now. That's what happened was, piracy was already illegal, but became so rampant that it changed how people consumed music, right? And what happened was that the industry created a level or a manner of consumption that was more in line with how people were consuming music now. So that ended up becoming streaming. I don't think streaming would have happened the way it did without piracy being a long period preceding it. So I would say in that sense, the regulation and ultimate creation of a corporate sort of piracy did work, because all of those people are still making billions of dollars. Certainly a point that I feel like more needs to be said on. It is clearly problematic that these companies trained on unlicensed music, but calling it stolen oversimplifies how copyright works. Legally, theft usually implies depriving someone of the original. That doesn't work, because sampling is not depriving someone of the original. So that doesn't hold up. This is something new, unauthorized learning, but learning by robots, which maybe should be regulated, because robots shouldn't. I'm simplifying using the term robots. But I think that there is an ethical concern about the people who control data knowing everything about everyone without their consent, or having access to everything in a way that they can use it to generate new material without people's consent. The legal system is always focused on the output. If a song sounds too close to another, you are liable, but AI introduces a new shade of gray. It can mimic the texture and production style of an artist without copying a single melody, line, or lyric. That is where the real battle lies. We have solutions for plagiarism, and we've been doing it for decades. But we don't yet have a clear framework for protecting a sound or a vibe from being mathematically replicated. That's a blurry line, but that's also, I feel like, got adjudicated in that... what was that song with Robin Thicke and them and Pharrell and them, and they got sued by Marvin Gaye? I think that was about reproducing texture and sound and vibe. So there's already a legal precedent. So many ways AI can vast majority visible background vocals and harmony. Okay, so this is saying that there's a bunch of ways. This is saying that there's a bunch of ways to use artificial intelligence that are nuanced and aren't just typing in keywords and creating music. It's saying that AI tools can be helpful in a bunch of different ways in the music process. But again, I think people who are pro AI have to focus on this part more. Focus on letting people know that there are ways to do it that's not slop, because all we see is, like, most of what we see public facing is slop. Most of what we see public facing is uncanny valley stuff that makes us feel weird. Whereas if there are if there has been AI used in the background of a product in a way that might be helpful, we don't see that. That's not out in the discourse. That's not being explained. You can be lazy with it. You can be hyper detailed with it. It's just a creative tool. It's sampling lazy as a form of audio collage. You get to choose, blah, blah, blah. I understand the fear impacts me most. Want to be lazy, shortcuts, ancient equipment. Da, 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 da. This was funny. Do I want it to spit out RAC tracks with a click? No, because that's boring. I didn't get into music because it was easy. And when I first read it, I was like, RAC tracks. I'm like, is that some sort of music thing I don't know about? I'm like, damn, there's so much music stuff I don't know about. And I was like, dang. But then, 1 second. I love the craft of small details. We're seeing the unraveling of technicality as a barrier of entry. What I do fear is hyperinflating the amount of music that's out there. Do you really fear it? Okay. Endless stream of generative content seems pretty boring. At the end of the day, people want art made by humans and people care less and less about how it's made. I don't agree with that. That is not the sentiment that I see. When we're here streaming and something AI comes up, that is not the sentiment that I see. I don't see people caring less how it's made. I see people caring very much how it's made because I see people wanting to experience something that they don't have to question whether or not it's made by people. That's what I see. I see people wanting to have faith that what is shown to them is real and authentic and made by people. I see that when people are encountered with any evidence to the contrary, they don't like that. But then this is the last slide, but then this is the funny part. You get up here to the Timbaland's caption. Happy Wednesday. I saw this post this morning from a musician producer at RAC. So this is not even his post. This is not even his post. This is a post from somebody else named RAC that he put on his Instagram. Slide for slide. And he thought it was a good take on everything going on with AI. And, you know, it's just so funny how that works. It's just so funny how that works. How this felt like communication from a person, but when you scratch the surface, it came from somebody else. Seems to put a lot of this discourse here in a nutshell. Yeah, and there's some good comments too. The real Mike Dean says, I wonder how much money that company gave you to say all of this, because he's probably not even realizing that it wasn't Timbaland himself. There's a lot of good stuff here. I'm gonna drop this link in the chat so y'all can have fun reading through these comments and stuff too. But yeah, the irony was delicious. The irony was delicious here. Like and subscribe, homie, friend. It's free. Stop playing.